World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
This is Rchards, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Good afternoon. This is Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, The Art of War. And for those who are new to our show, my name, which was given to me at birth, was William Anthony Rogers. So The Art of War is, and most of you who have followed my writings, my newspaper and radio and now Soul City know that I'm a student and still learning from Sun Tzu's strategic classic, The Art of War. Taught that at City College for some years. So that's kind of a play on words, but a number of people who know me as Tony wonder, is William Anthony Rogers my dad or what have you? No, it's me. It's just that as they say, Tony is my stage name, and that's a good segue into introducing my guest as we wrap up Women's History Month. I have a person a good friend of mine, who is also a writer, Ron Scott. Told me, he said, "This lady is a legend in her own time, Tony. You need to have her on your show to end up Women's History Month." And after listening to her, I understand what he was saying. Diane Richards is the executive director of the Harlem Writers Guild. She's a playwright. She is a novelist, has a new book coming out, and I'll let her talk about that, because I know that when you have these major novels coming out, there's a lot of secrecy behind that. And we'll probably have to have her back on the show when it's released, but we'll talk briefly about that. But the idea is, a lot of people are not familiar with the Harlem Writers Guild. And actually, as a playwright, Diane wrote a play that was the New York Times thought it was, an extremely uh, lavish play that they gave a good review from. And of course, Woody King Jr. was the producer and director of New Federal Theater. So she comes along, we have a lot of mutual friends. Rosa Rivers and a number of others in the theater world are familiar with her. So I thought it would be great to wrap up this month with a woman who has paved the way and is a pioneer. And as we are in the second Harlem Renaissance, we'll definitely leave her mark there. So please welcome Diane Richards.
So happy to be here with you, Tony.
Well, it's a pleasure. The more I talk to you, the more I learn, which is the whole idea of urbanology systems. Allow for us to begin to know that we have so many wonderful jewels in our midst, and sometimes we don't know that. So, and that's not by mistake. That was pretty much something that. And what you don't know that you don't know, especially if you're people of color, is something that can make or break you. And to know that there are people like yourself, Diane, who are doing these things, whether young men or young women, know that there are people who they can follow and emulate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's always good to have this Black media and support Black media, because we can create our own narrative. So tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, Diane, and the journey that brought you to where we are now.
Well, okay. Thank you, Tony. We were talking backstage, and I realized my first job was in the theater. I had a non-speaking part in the People's Theater in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on 3rd Street. And the actress we were trying to remember in A Raisin in the Sun was Claudia McNeil.
Mm.
And we did a play at the Pabst Theater. I forgot the director, and I forgot the director's name. This was so many years ago. This was in the 1960s in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the late 1960s. But that was my first job as an actress. So I always had dual loves of singing and writing. As a young girl in grade school, one of my teachers, and I think I still have the poem or whatever I wrote, she compared me to Walt Whitman. Now, so important for young people to have nurturing school teachers, environments, learning environments, because I never forgot that. And it had to impact me. And I saw my father reading also. So I had to get out of Milwaukee. And I got out of Milwaukee and went to Oak Park, Illinois, to a radio station. But before I leave Milwaukee, I have to say Milwaukee nurtured me at WNOV radio station. I worked at WNOV radio station, and that changed my world. I loved being at WNOV. And at that time, Tony, I used to speak with a high voice. Hello. I remember the owner said, "Who is answering my phone? Who's answering WNOV?" And he said, "I love her voice." But later on, people told me, "Lower your voice, Diane. Lower your voice so people will take you seriously." But I went to WNOV, and then I ended up in New York in pursuit of my singing career.
Okay.
And when I got to New York, I mean, I've lived a while. I've been here for a while.
You don't look it.
Thank you. And I also, part of that, is that you or me? That's you, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. The
You
police
never know.
are, I'm in Harlem now, so we could hear
Me
that
too.
all the time. So I left uh, Milwaukee, went to Oak Park, Illinois, stayed at that radio station for about a year, and then I ended up in New York in pursuit of my singing career. I studied with Hollitt Smith, who was the music director of Bessie and Me, and Hollitt was blind. And so I had to really study with him. I thank Hollitt for learning how to sing. Uh, on pitch, sing. I would sing Sarah Vaughan songs. I sang all kinds of contemporary songs. I loved singing. And actually, to be honest with you, Tony, I felt that if I didn't sing, I was going to die.
Mm.
When I was young, I felt like I was going to die. Okay. And I can't tell you all of that because my whole history, because I really want to fast forward. Let's suffice it to say, I did get recorded and I was discovered by Chaz Palminteri, the man who did The Bronx Tale and Butch Barbella. Okay. And they did my one and only album, which you can find on the internet. Um, and Listen to Your Heart is the name of that album. And actually, John Hammond signed me to his label. There's a lot of famous people around me, and that album did what it did. Um, and it was before its time. They did not make a video of it. It was, there's some songs on it that I really love, but people discovered and put that album on the internet. I didn't put that album on the internet. And but let me just fast forward. When that, I was in Boston and I was told by a manager I had that New Kids on the Block were coming together, and that Dick Scott. Do you remember Dick Scott, Tony?
I remember the name.
Yeah, Dick Scott was the manager of the New Kids on the Block and Mark Wahlberg.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to work with his company and I became his right hand person. And everybody came through there. Everybody, including Jay-Z. I managed Big L, who unfortunately was murdered in the streets of Harlem. And he was close to Fat Joe, and to another Biggie. Biggie was close to him, and well, that's another story. And you have me, but
So
anyway,
we got about 3 more shows we have to do with you, right?
there's a lot of entertainment industry. There's a lot of entertainment, and I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I loved being in it. Patty Austin came through our management company. We Teddy Riley recorded Michael Jackson's album at that time. But now let me just say, while I was at the entertainment industry, when I had put my singing to the side, I was still writing. And so I was looking around to join a writing group, and I saw an ad to join the Harlem Writers Guild, to take a course at the 92nd Street Y at the Harlem Writers Guild. Secretary Grace Edwards was teaching the course. I said, let me get there. I got there, and she loved my writing in the classroom. The group of writers loved me so much. She hand invited me to join the Harlem Writers Guild. And I said, oh my God, I'm home, because my singing was to the side, right? It didn't turn out the way I wanted to. So I embraced my writing, and I just loved it. And I love what comes with writing, Tony. You know, you're a writer too, Tony.
Yeah, I understand. A lot of the spirit, a lot of you come out. I feel sometimes that, as they say, I'm just a vessel, and as a higher force that uses me to communicate, whether it's this stuff, radio, writing. So I understand. It's a spiritual.
Right.
Nature.
And so I kept writing, and then I wrote, and I don't know how this happened, Tony. I, you know, my character Soa and Soa's Red Gravy Stories,
Hmm.
she just came to me. I was on vacation.
As I said, you were a vessel. That was a
She
story
started
that had to
writing.
get out.
Yeah, she started writing herself. Okay, she started writing, and she wrote short stories, right? And so I went to a writer's retreat, and Woody King Jr. was at that writer's retreat. And there was a whole bunch of us. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. We were up in upper state New York somewhere. And I believe we even stayed overnight. But I read a short story. Now, Soa is a 110-year-old wise woman. Woody always say, don't call her a witch, call her a wise woman, but she's really a witch. And she tells stories, and one of the things she says, boy, do I love telling stories, and I sure love it telling lies. Okay. And she would tell stories about everything from being a slave to being a Hollywood white woman to changing herself to be 50 years old when she's 110 years old. And Woody just loved it. And I used to love to hear Woody laugh when the stories, he was thrilled about it. So, time went on, and maybe 10 years after Woody became familiar with I published it. I said, I'm not waiting for nobody to publish this book. I'm going to publish my book. I love my book. And it even has a dictionary at the end, the way we use different words. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a cute little book. Here it is. I don't know if you'll be able to. Here it is. Look at
I can
Soa.
see it.
Yeah, that's Soa. Look at her. She got her pipe and everything. She's not playing.
Mm-hmm.
And so Woody got the book. He said, I love this book. Woody put that 2012 came, and Woody put that book on off Broadway. He put, it was something to see the words jump off the page into actors and actresses' mouths, and it become live. And that production was fantastic. Okay. But you know what happened? Sandy came through town.
Mm.
It was a miracle for me to even get the New York Times to do that fabulous review.
Right.
And Lynette McGee, we got star as Soa. Lynette McGee of Sparkle. Remember Lynette McGee?
Yeah.
Was also on Broadway herself, on Showboat and all that. So that happened, and of course I stayed in the Harlem Writers Guild. And I want to just give a shout out to my mentor, Grace Edwards, who literally was a mystery writer, and she went all the way back to the Harlem Writers Guild. Let me just tell you, the Harlem Writers Guild was formed in 1950 by Dr. John Henry Clark, John Oliver Killens, Rosa Gee. Those were the major players that formed the guild. And they decided that they were tired of being not heard by white writers and in their circles. So they said, let's come together. And a number of people came through the guild. Lorraine Hansberry was part of the guild. Paul Robeson, Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte. We have pictures. Ozzie Davis, Ruby Dee, Paulie Marshall, okay, Sarah Wright, Grace Edwards.
Wow.
All of these people, okay, it was official and unofficial. But it was they have pictures of them in the Schomburg, in that theater, the Negro Theater in the Schomburg. And this was a safe haven. And the reason we're still known today, I believe, because people used to try to find us all the time, right? We were like undercover. Um, um, is Dr. Maya Angelou includes the Harlem Writers Guild in her bio. And of course, John Oliver Killens went and wanted a writers conference. And Dr. Brenda Green of the Center for Black Literature, based at Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn, went and did actualized his wish to have a writers conference. And we just held that writers conference last week. It was the 17th annual writers conference. And I would suggest people to go to the Center for Black Literature and donate and support that organization. The Harlem Writers Guild is also a nonprofit. We're not soliciting funds at this time. We're mean and lean. We're still working on that, but we have had people support our guild. Like Remy Martin supported the Harlem Writers Guild, just said, you are fabulous. We want you to do this poetry thing with us. And we did. You can see some of it on our website. So you want to ask me any questions? I've
Well,
talked so long.
no, well, the whole idea is for people to know who you are. I know that you have a novel coming up. I don't know whether you can talk too much about it,
I can
but
say,
we should, if we can, talk a
okay,
little bit about what that entailed and how you got to focusing on it.
okay. So now this is an interesting thing. It's uncanny. Do you believe in serendipity?
Yes, I do. There's
Okay.
no such thing as a coincidence. It's a
So,
message from the mind of the universe.
so when I was singing, I remember Impact Magazine, and I found it through some old papers because my album came out in 1983 on Zoo York Records. And like I said, I was signed on to it was John Hammond's label. In case people don't know who John Hammond um, uh, discovered Billie Holiday,
Hmm.
um, and a number of other jazz artists. John Hammond was the one that went around looking for jazz artists. Okay,
And
so
speakeasies.
and speakeasies, he was huge. Okay, and that was unheard of, and it was culturally wrong for him to cross the color line. He didn't care. He loved jazz. So he signed me, and I'm really proud that I have that connection. I remember him coming. Anyway, I digress a little bit. I sort of forgot my train of thought.
You were talking about, we were getting to how you got to your novel and the journey that took you.
So Impact Magazine. It asked me, who is your favorite singer? I said Ella Fitzgerald. Meanwhile, I'd listen to Diana Ross all the time. I just loved her glamour, everything about Diana Ross, okay? Please. Okay, that's all. Toot toot, baby, baby. You know, where did our love go? Oh, I loved it. So uh I mentioned Ella Fitzgerald was my favorite singer. So it came upon me to write a novelization of her origin story. And
Mm.
and I did with a fabulous editor, manager, agent. My agents are fabulous behind this adventure. I wrote it, and I related to her origin story. A lot of people don't know many things about Ella Fitzgerald because she was very quiet. She didn't speak about things. Now, if anybody is interested in pre-ordering the book, you can do it on Amazon. It's called Ella, a Novel, and
Mm.
it's on HarperCollins Amistad. So if you go to Ella, a novel and you put mine, and you can just do that on Amazon and find it, or you can put Diane Richards, Ella. If you do that on Google, the novel will come right up. And so it was wonderful to, it's a historical, fictionalized narrative of her life. And you know what I loved the most, Tony? I loved creatively feeling what Ella felt. You know, putting myself in that time period.
Mm-hmm.
The 1930s, the Depression, the racism, the Black people couldn't even go to the stores, all the stores on 125th Street.
Like Bloomstein's.
Right. You could not go there. Okay. But her desire to sing and to dance and to make it to be something different. So, if you love a story where someone is not supposed to make it, there's no possibility of you making it. Look at your circumstances. And you make it anyway. This is a book for you. And you are known as the Lady of Song. So, yeah, that's Ella, a novel. And I am blessed by that. But isn't that uncanny? Isn't that uncanny that I would, back then when my album was out, that I said Ella Fitzgerald was my favorite singer, and then all these years later, I write a novelization of her coming of origin?
Well, again, from a spiritual standpoint, as I had mentioned before, the things that we do, especially the creative things, are things that come through us. We are vehicles, tools for the mind of the universe, God, however you want to label that entity that's greater than we. And we don't know how we are able to do the things that we do the way we do it, but there's a master plan. I always believe that all things happen for a reason. Even our conversation, Diane, things happen as part of a master plan. And I believe that my life has been interesting as it relates to Harlem, being one of the co-founders of Harlem Week, or being in the Black Panther Party, or being at City College for so many years and working there, advising 5 presidents. It's been a blessing to understand that it's not you, it's just that things happen that you are been chosen to articulate and to do. So all things happen for a reason, and there's a lot of gratitude. I mean, I wouldn't mind being on a yacht someplace, and that's still something that's in my manifestation. But to be able to have the opportunity to help so many people, I was talking to my attorney earlier today, and I said, if I don't go to heaven, I'm not going to be happy, because I've made a lot of sacrifices in the name of the greater good. But what goes around comes around.
You're blessed, and look at you, okay, and the way you sound, and you're so encouraging. And it's interesting you said CUNY, because I got my undergraduate degree there, right? Mm-hmm. I got my undergraduate degree, and you know what they did, Tony? The universe talked to me at that time, because I was working, and this institution I work for also helped me finish school, and they loved my writing so much the Center for Worker Education, they published part of SOA's stories in one of their books. And then a graduate class, I was an undergraduate, invited me into their graduate writing classes. So that was a sign right then that, you know what? The universe said, Diane, you are supposed to write. and I also, something divine also happened. I was a moderator at the Center for Black Literature last week, Tony, on historical narratives. Dr. Brenda Green asked me to moderate these fantastic authors. A.J. Ferdell, who wrote The Good Negress. Then there was W.B. Garvey, who is a relative of Marcus Garvey. Okay. And there was Mary Emma Graham, who wrote a book on a companion, the Cambridge Companion to the African American novel, which I need to read it. I need that information. Right. Very scholarly people. So things happen for a reason. They definitely happen for a reason.
Where, if someone is interested in the Writers Guild, how do they get involved? Is there a meeting place, or how do you let people who want to be associated with the Guild, how do they do that?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked me that question. Okay, so if you have a sincere desire to hone your craft of writing, you can write us at director@theharlemwritersguild.org. But if you just want to do a drive-by, we don't want that. We're not agents. We're not publishers. And but we are supporters, and we are a safe environment for serious writers who want to get better and build their craft. We've had to say that, Tony, because if you look at the history of the famous people who have been in the Guild, they have been, it's like you come in and you share your work. And I can just see Dr. John Henry Clark, because there's a book called A Past Director, Beloved Harlem. So the past director, William Banks, was fabulous to me. He was fabulous because he literally interviewed Dr. John Henry Clark, and he put a compilation of people's writing in there, and I was included. I was included. My soul was red gravy, but you know what he called it? I think he called it beans and gravy, and said, I didn't care. I didn't care. I was included with all these magnificent.
As long as they spelled your name right?
Right. It's a literary tribute to Black America's most famous neighborhood, from the classics to the contemporary. And William H. Banks did this. And we had wanted Maya Angelou to write the preface for it, but she didn't and was unable to. But we got Dr. John Henry Clark telling us how to follow our path. But I just see him in a room with Maya Angelou bringing her script. John Oliver Killen said, come on, you want to become, after she's been with Malcolm X and in Africa and done her whole thing, you could come to New York and become a writer. So I say all of that to say, for people to know what the Harlem Writers Guild is, we do serious review of our work. That's what we do. But and we've done it since 1950. And we meet every 2 weeks. We used to, before COVID, meet at the Schomburg, but we meet virtually now via Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in joining the Harlem Writers Guild and you're serious about honing your craft of writing, you write us at director@theharlemwritersguild.org. Say that you heard about us
On
on,
Soul City
on
TV.
Soul City, and we will invite you to join us, and then we will see if you're a good fit and we're a good fit.
Hmm. What are some of the things you're looking to accomplish, let's say, this time next year? Where would you like to be?
If
Besides
in
award-winning novelist.
I would love to be in a writer's room on the film Ella.
Hmm. Okay. Thought manifestation.
I believe in the power of attraction.
That's true. Uh-huh. That's true. And if you think it, you can make it happen. But you have to believe and have faith in that energy. Well, so we said it here today, and when that happens, don't say Tony who when I call you for an interview.
Of course not, Tony.
But when what are some of the things we talked a little bit about Woody King Jr. Give us a little a few of your thoughts about working with the great Woody King Jr. at the New Federal Theater.
I'm just in love with Woody King Jr. And I told him this a few days ago. I just called him up and said, Woody King, I just love you. I just love you. I One of the things when we started working on the play, Woody King said to me, "Now, Diane, I know you writers have, you might get writers block away." I said, "That's not going to happen to me, Woody. That's not going to happen to me. I do not have writer's block because one of the things I learned right away is how to write on demand. Okay? How to
Mhm.
tell me you want me to write something, Tony. If you tell me, Diane, I want you to write a character, I want you to write me a scene with an antagonist and a protagonist, and I need it in 2 hours, perfect or imperfectly, I'll write that for you. Okay?" And Woody said, he said, "Girl, you told the truth." Then the other thing Woody said to me, and I reminded him, he said this to me, because Tony, I'm going to keep this close to my heart. And I am not boasting. It came from the mouth of Woody King. It did not come from me. He said, "Diane, you're a genius. I know you don't think you are, but you are." He said, you write very boldly. You write very bold. You say things that a woman wouldn't basically say, in some things. And so I remembered that, and I'm not, but I'm telling you about Woody King. The other thing is, there's nothing like having your play go on and Woody King is in the back of the theater and you can hear him laughing. It is just so wonderful, right? It is so wonderful. And I used to take him out to lunch or dinner as much as I could, just bask in this man who made Nisaki Shange, for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is not enough. And yes, I know it. And all these actors, Denzel Washington, Samuel L. Jackson, all these actors and actresses coming out of his theater, getting a foothold, okay? And he's still happening today. The New Federal Theater is still happening today. Go to their website, donate to the New Federal Theater. It is a Black cultural institution.
Yeah, I was introduced many years ago to Woody by Rosa Rivers, and Vo, who is close to Woody, and Woody has done a number of things. With many of the Harlem theater uh, community. And when Ron, who's another good friend, Ron Scott, who said that I needed to talk to you, Ron is another unsung hero, part of
Yeah.
the Harlem Renaissance. There are people, as we talk about the second Harlem Renaissance, as I had mentioned before, Harlem Week will be 50 years old uh, this
Wow.
August. It's the 50th
Wow.
anniversary and started in 1974. And there are people like the Ron Scotts and many others who um, have traveled. You look at the new hotels, the Harlem Renaissance. Have you been to the Harlem Renaissance yet?
I'm staying there on my birthday. Which,
Okay.
by the way, my birthday is on the eclipse this year,
Oh, in April.
April 8th.
Okay. We just had a lunar eclipse. This is an interesting time.
Yes.
So I wow, that's interesting. I have to come by
Right.
and see you. Matter
I,
of fact,
I said no. I said no. I said the power of attraction, so many things. The eclipse is on my birthday this year. What is going on?
well, as I always say, and for a birthday present, I'm going to give you a copy of my book that talks about all of that stuff, the wellness stuff. I was and still of an advocate of holistic health and wellness and things that you talk about. Obviously, the power of attraction, manifestation of thought, and there are many things that we don't know, but we are part of. And in order to grow, it's always good to begin to have an understanding of the knowledge that's thousands of years old that talks about who we are. And if we don't know our hidden gifts and powers, sometimes they work against us, which is why you never really want to focus on the things that you don't have or that you uh, want. You focus on what you do have and what you ask for yourself. Just like you doing the script for uh, Ella. Uh, those are things you got to put it out there in the universe, and the universe works with you, and you don't even have to believe it because whether you believe it or not, what you think comes to you. And I'm sure through your trials and tribulations, have experienced the fact that your thinking has a lot to do with your environment and where you are and what your whole mindset is. And those are the things that I think is wonderful. The Writers Guild. Uh, I've had an opportunity to meet Dr. Clark, and I was at City College for a long period of time, and Leonard Jeffries would invite people to talk and to give lectures, and it was a very interesting time. That's when I was a philosophy major, but wasn't aware of Kemet. you know, but, but I but I understood certain things, and that's when I began to learn about who I was. And when you when you when did you become director of the Writers Guild?
2017.
Hmm.
Tony, may I ask the name of your book, please?
Actually, it's The Art of War, because
Okay.
my name is William Anthony Rogers.
Okay.
So The Art of War is a play on. This is like an urbanology. I had a friend who's no longer here, who always kind of allowed for me to understand that names are very important. Whether that affect, there are a lot of people who do readings based on how your name, the letters in your name, and all of those types of things. And when I realized how fascinated I was in the Sun Tzu
Mm-hmm.
classic, The Art of War,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it, it allowed for me to connect. But then actually, it was my son. He says, "Well, Dad, you know, you teach about Sun Tzu, The Art of War, but your name is War." You know, my good friend Lloyd Williams, that's what he calls me, War. You know, and I call him Law because his initials is LAW and mine is WAR. And um, but it's a series I write for the Harlem Community News. Uh, my cousin is the publisher, and I write a weekly column, and it has always been it has been challenging for me because I have a mild case of dyslexia. So sometimes the words get mixed up. So I have to go. It takes me a little longer to put certain things together. And one of the ways that I was able to overcome that is my cousin says, Tony, you know, you need to write. I was in the Panther Party, and when I went to City College, I had a professor who said, if you could spell, you would be dangerous. He said, because you got some hell of ideas. And he said, but don't worry, because, you know, a lot of people can spell but can't think, but you could think. So, you know, so, you know, and you got to do it. You know, if you know, I put this book together. It was just basically 64 of the thoughts that came to me when I was writing articles for the paper, and most people talked to me about how they liked this particular article or that one, and the ones that were the most popular I put into the 64. The 64 is a special number. It's the I Ching, the Book of Change, has 64 quadrants, which comes from West Africa. And if you look at our DNA, the discovery of it, we have 64 quadrants there. So a lot of the stuff comes together in a way that allows for us to understand that we're just, as Shakespeare said, we're just actors
Mm-hmm.
on this stage. But you know, they're the directors or the director, whoever she may be, has a greater plan as relates to how our life goes. And all things happen, Diane, all things happen for a reason. Sometimes you might not realize it when it's happening to you, but if you keep a good thought as to your experiences, you'll say, well, damn, even though it might have been bad at the time that it happened,
Oh
if it
yeah,
had not happened, I
definitely,
wouldn't be where I am. So
definitely.
it brings me to my other thought is that all things are beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can find the yin and yang. You can find benefit in all things. You just have to look for it. And one of the great benefits is our introduction to you. You know, I have to thank Ron. You know, we were talking uh, uh, over the phone, and I was saying, "Wow, this lady is interesting." I couldn't wait for the interview. I was saying, "My goodness, there's so many things that we haven't covered." I was saying to you behind stage, I said, "Diane, we got to have maybe one or two more more interviews to talk
I,
about those things that you said, well, that's another story. That's another story." Well, those stories are important for people to begin to understand, especially in the entertainment world. You were with people that allow for you to see what others don't see. A lot of times when you're in the press, in the news, uh, people see that part of you, which is not really you. That's the image that is portrayed. But often when you take the cameras away and all of that stuff, that's when you are able to see who that person really is. And those are stories. Those are things that is, as you was talking about, even with Ella, you know,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
her her auditions at the Apollo and the things like that, which I'm sure is in the book because that was a very turning point in her life. And these are things that are important. I'm just so happy now, and I have a great deal of gratitude for the Matt McCoys and the Soul Cities and the different outlets that allow for me to record some of the things that many years ago in 1974 we didn't have a lot of the opportunities. There's a young man that's doing some writing about the 50th anniversary, and he was saying, "So, do you have any pictures or all of those things?" And I said, "Well, at that time we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't." In 1974, if you had a telephone, you had to be a muscle man to carry that thing around because it was so big.
Did they have them then? They had the mobile phones then?
They were talking about it.
Okay.
But they were big boxes, and but one of the great things about now, and you had mentioned it, and we were off stage, is, for instance, with Harlem Week, we used to have hundreds of thousands of people, almost into the millions at some point over, because it used to last for 2 months. But when the pandemic came, we had to go basically digital. And based on the reporting of Sunshine Sachs in 2021, we had over 1.6 billion impressions based on the fact that people throughout the world were able to see it. And I know that you've experienced that with the new media. You're able to touch the lives of a lot more people, and it brings the world together, which I think for us, it's important, and we have to take advantage of it because a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't like us talking to each other like this.
Yes.
Because it allows for us to uncover, what's real and what's not. But your life and the things that, what are you going to do your autobiography now? I mean, is that another thing that's going to be coming up? Because you've touched a lot of areas.
It's interesting. I think that right now I really need to, my concerns are staying in the present, staying healthy and right-sized, staying grateful, also being used as a vehicle to help people. There's a number of people that are having a hard time around me right now. And I want to be a vehicle for them, for hope and care. So I stay in the present, and I have gone to less. I have my goals and wishes and desires, but I also know that I am spiritually based, and I do believe that there's a power that actualizes, knows what is best for me. Because give the situation, let's just go there, of life and death. There's nobody we know that has died and come back and told us about it. We have our beliefs, and we have prayer and meditation, and we have our spiritual tools. And I mention this because there's the power of letting go to whatever power you believe in is just like, it's just so freeing to understand that I can present myself, I can have my preferences, but I also accept what is given to me with gratitude. You talked a lot about gratitude today, Tony, which makes me attracted to you and what you're doing, because that gratitude is everything. And I was just thinking the other day, and I'll just say this. When people ask, what side are you on? There's only one side. The side is the human being. the love of human beings. There's only one side of a situation. You can think you know everything, right? Or the other person can think they know everything, but there's one side, which is the side of good and love. And
It's
and
the
I,
highest frequency. Love is the highest frequency. And
and
one of the things that I tell friends, because as you get a little older in your mid 70s, you usually either go to the hospital or the funerals. And I say something that a lot of times people are confused with, but there's no such thing as death. We know that from a scientific standpoint that energy never dies. And when you set that a glass of water on a shelf and you come back maybe in a month and it's gone, did it die? No, it just changed form, because that's what energy does. It doesn't die, it only changes form. So when we talk about spiritual or people who are with us, we have to be receptive of that, uh, bad or good, you know, and learn how, just like a TV, how to turn. If you're looking at television and you see a channel that you don't like, you turn the channel. And if you stay there, that's on you. You know? And if the TV is broken, channel two is still going on. So life is something that we have been, as you said, no one has come back that we know of anyway, to talk about it, but it is something that is a continuum.
well, I believe that too, that matter can't be destroyed. That's basic physics. Okay, they say that. Even the physicists say that. So I know where you're coming from.
And spirit is not matter necessarily, but it's a higher form of frequency, and that spirit is love. And
Mhm.
I am so happy to have the opportunity of talk with you, and looking forward. Hopefully, I can buy you a drink or whatever, you water, whatever it is that you drink on the April 8th. But I want to wish you a happy birthday. I
Thank
also
you.
want to thank you, Diane, for taking some time to be on the show. I think this is a perfect way to end our Women's History Month uh, segment for this month. And I am very honored to be able to be in your orbit, my dear.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Tony. And thank you, Mr. McCoy, also. And I am so grateful for this opportunity.
And we have to give a shout out to Yana Woodhouse, who I hopefully that you guys will connect, because I think you have a lot in common. So thanks again. Happy birthday, and looking forward to seeing you in person.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye. And that's it for us for today. There's a lot of things that are going on. We are moving into April. And it's interesting. We have Women's History Month, and then it ends. And the first thing that we talk about is April Fool's Day. I don't know what's that about, or either Black History Month, which is the shortest month in the year. But nevertheless, let's take it and make the best out of whatever we can receive, because all things are beneficial. And I look forward to seeing you um, in April. Spring is here. Happy spring. Pretty soon it'll be summer. And we're going to Ghana in November, the Harlem Tourism Board. Go harlem.org. Please go there and look at what's happening there. And of course, I'd like to thank Matt McCoy and the Soul City team for providing this platform. And God willing, I hope to see you next week. Take care. Bye.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.